Whew, that was a bit of a nail biter. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Man, that game was a bit of a workout for the old ticker, honestly. Uh, as a Leinster fan, yeah, I wouldn't say it was the end. Certainly not terribly enjoyable, but as a rugby fan, it certainly was full of drama. Uh, Brilliant game, and I'm kind of I feel kind of lucky that I can at times at least separate my Leinster fanness from my rugby fanness, and I think it helped a little bit in this game. But this was absolutely huge occasion. 82,300 people there. I think it was a record for the Champions Cup. Kickoff delayed by 10 minutes, so allowed Leinster fans to get into the stadium. Coming, I guess, north of the Liffey, maybe a little bit strange for some of them. Took them a little while to actually make it into the ground, especially with all the, pubs along the way as well. Both teams, though, showing nerves early on. Mitchell and Larmer knocking on with a poor pass from Lowe as well, has Frawley scrambling. Northampton then win a scrum penalty for Porter boring in. Porter felt that he was getting a bit of a raw deal from the officials in the scrum, but that happens to him sometimes, and I'm pretty sure I saw Matthew Reynal talking to him about it, and whatever Porter said, I'm pretty sure Reynal then just said to him, well, then that's your fault, right? So not agreeing with him, but for me, I think Porter, when he knows how the official is officiating the scrum, just needs to change his approach. Even if he's not doing anything illegal, he needs to just look squeaky clean as he can. But then we're seeing more knock-ons from both teams. Leinster, they've been in camp for 2 weeks, while basically second team went down to South Africa, and they're looking rusty. But then they start getting into their stride. Jameson Gibson Park puts a nice chip over into the 22. Hendy knocks that one on, and it's attacking scrum for Leinster. And then some really big carries off the scrum. You've got the likes of Doris van der Fleer, McCarthy in there as well, all carrying well. And I thought that Maloney had a great game as well there in the second row with him. They managed to force a penalty. When it comes back, then the attack peters out. Gibson Park decides to go quickly and then puts a pinpoint pass out to Lowe. He goes over to score in the corner. It was a heart and mouth moment for me, because I was sure that the two Northampton players in between him and Lowe, one of them was going to intercept it and go the length of the field to score. But no, Lowe gets over in the corner. Rossburn converts for 7-0. Northampton then with a period of possession. Laws with a great fend as they look to spread it. Rossburn, though, intercepts. He's hunted down, but Leinster then win a penalty and they go to the corner. Leinster go to Baird at the back of the line out. Doris then gets stopped just short of the line. He kind of pops the ball up to offload it, and Gibson Park, great pass. He just slaps the ball over another couple of Northampton defenders out to Lowe, and then he's over for his second try. Conversion hits the post, and it's 12 points to nil, and Leinster is certainly looking the better of the two teams at this point. Northampton then trying to respond, but Leinster defence is smothering them and forcing knock-ons and turning over the ball as well. Byrne then stretches Leinster lead with a penalty to make it 15-0. Leinster then, they've got another promising position, but Laws gets over the ball to win a penalty. And at this point in the game, Laws was one of the few Saints who didn't look like he was overawed by the occasion. But then Northampton finally puts something together. Dingwall and Freeman with good hands. They get the outside that Leinster blitz. Furbank then puts a pass in behind Ram, who can't control it, and it's a knock on. could have been in for a try there. We come back for the penalty. Finn Smith then gets him on the board, and from the tee, and it's 15 points to 3. Leinster come again as we near the break. Some good one-out carries and then pick and goes as well. But Van der Fleer knocks on, and that's half-time, 15 points to 3. It takes then just 3 minutes of the second half for James Lowe to complete his hat-trick. Ryan Baird sets off with a great break up the middle. The guy, he's just so athletic. Leinster then keep the ball alive. Some amazing offloads off the deck, including one from Sheehan just before the try. Frawley puts Lowe over in the corner. Conversion is missed, and it's 20 points to 3. Northampton then look at the, they look to attack off a line out. Freeman coming on a good line. Langdon then carries, but he gets isolated. Leinster force a knock on. Northampton come again. Mitchell with a nice snipe, but at the next ruck, Leinster get in to counter as nobody's there at 9 for Northampton, and they win a penalty. Augustus then makes a break off a loose ball. Basically, it was a high ball that was kind of slapped back. Leinster were doing a lot of that, kind of slapping the ball back. But this time, it breaks for Augustus. He collects it, and he's steaming down the touchline, but Doris gets back to cover. This, though, leads to a Northampton line-out, then a scrum under the post, and it looks like decent attacking position for Northampton, but Leinster get the nudge in the scrum and win a penalty. And a lot of key moments, when Northampton trying to get themselves back in the game were going Leinster's way at this stage. But Northampton then, they finally get over the line about a minute later. Hendy with a chip into the 22. Leinster knock it back between two Leinster players, and it breaks. Hendy is there to gather and go over to finish. Finn Smith then absolutely nails a touchline conversion, and it's 20 points to 10. And Northampton really have a lifeline at this stage. Coles then playing the 9, very silly from him. Penalty to Leinster. And this one, it's pretty straight. It's not that far. Like it's some distance out, but not like beyond Burns' range. But he misses it to the right. And for me, for Byrne, the ability he has from the tee, it was very kickable. And Leinster looking like they need some scores now to just kind of put the game to bed, but it's not coming for them, and they're playing kind of more on the defensive side. And we've seen them do this before. They did it against La Rochelle in both of the finals, and ended up paying the price for that. Northampton then back to the edge of Leinster 22, but pressure for Leinster forces a knock on and a penalty. Jameson Gibson Park now putting up a series of box kick, and Leinster looking to suffocate the Northampton team. And again, they're putting it up, and then they're just going up to contest and slap the ball back. They're not trying to actually win the ball cleanly in the air. Northampton then have another chance. Freeman kicks over the top. Looks like he's going to win the race there, but across comes Gibson Park to snuff out the trouble, at least immediately. But it's a 5-minute scrum to Northampton because he's carried it back over. The ball basically, when he goes for first, he's just this side of the try line. It comes off his knee and then he gets there. So it is 5-minute scrum to Northampton. They then win a penalty. They suck in the Leinster defence, and then they go out wide with advantage. Seabrook goes over in the corner. Another great touchline conversion from Smith, and it's the 3-point game, 20 points to 17. Northampton then come looking for a score to either draw the game or maybe even to get a try. Like they're going to win it, because Leinster don't look like they're threatening the scoreboard anymore. Leinster creaking, but then Doris gets over the ball and wins a penalty, so crucial. If Northampton had gotten that ball out, they had numbers. Frawley was out of the game. He whatever happened, he was injured. He wasn't involved. Leinster had been sucked in, and there were options either side for Northampton, with numbers. But Doris gets in there and wins that crucial penalty, and pretty much ends up settling the game. Frawley hobbles off for Leinster. They kick the penalty up the line. They claim it. They go to the maul. Then start to run down the clock. Northampton almost turned over. A really good effort from them to try and counter ruck, but Leinster are wise to it, and they flood numbers in as well. They make sure they retain that ball, get the ball off the field. Full time is 20 points to 17. So for me, this is an interesting one because I was very worried when I saw what the score was at the 60-minute mark, because I'm working on a video that won't be ready until the off season, because it's taken a long time to put all the numbers together. But basically, I'm working on a video for the URC teams, focusing, first of all, I started focusing on Leinster, but then I decided to expand it to all of the teams to look at what points in the games teams scored or points. And what's coming out from me at the moment is Leinster do not score very many points in the last quarter. And the main reason for that, over the last, basically I've gone back since the URC became the URC. And the main reason for that is because generally they don't have to. Generally by 60 minutes, they're like, 2 or more scores up. And you're into kind of consolation score time for the opposition. So they don't have to score too many points in the last quarter. And then in games where they've had to score it, they've actually found it difficult to kind of lift themselves back up again, because I don't know what it is. I'm not a sports scientist or a coach or anything, but the only thing I can think of is it's some kind of muscle memory. The same way that they're able to, in a lot of games, get fast starts. They're able to score, tries just before halftime and just after halftime to, get, change the dynamic of a game. And in the same mold, they seem to have an inability to score in the last kind of 20 minutes or so of a game when they're trying to force it. And it does feel like they're trying to force it. It doesn't feel natural for Leinster to have to come and try and get a score at that point in a game. But as I said, that video is one for the off season. I think it's going to be an interesting one for you guys, but it's a monster of a task to do for what's probably going to be about a 40-minute video in the end. But it's just mountains and mountains of work, and it's going to be another probably couple of months before I actually get through all of that. But it was interesting, and I wish I hadn't done it, because it made me so nervous when it went to first of all 20 points to 10 and then 20 points to 17. I thought, Leinster aren't scoring again, so it's all on the defence, and luckily the defence came up just about in the end. But we're going to have a look at some stats, and then we'll talk just a short bit about each of the teams as well, because I don't want to prattle on for too long. Although, again, I just love talking about rugby, so I could go on for ages. But I've got other things to do. I've got to get myself ready for work tomorrow. But let's pull up the stats. Let's hope the stats are actually up to date, because they never seem to be for the Champions Cup. There's always, like, the line-out stats always seem to be wrong, but we'll see. So points scored, first of all, 20 points to 13 for Leinster. Tries, 3 tries to 2. So basically James Lowe with his hat-trick there, but Gibson Park laid on 2 of them. And honestly, for Lowe, like, probably the easiest hat-trick you're going to see anyone score. Like, he must have gone, like, in total maybe 5 meters to score his 3 tries after collecting the ball. But like, always there at the right point, right there to receive the pass, and that's the mark of a really good winger. Then on to like, just kicking success, 40% for Leinster, 100% for Northampton, and Finn Smith's kicks, his ability to convert from the touchline really did keep Northampton in the game, because he misses those two touchline conversions, and then suddenly, the end of the game is very different because it's a 7 point margin that they're trying to make up, and maybe Leinster are a little bit more comfortable from there. But only 40% for Ross Byrne per day for him. From the kicking tee, even though he did nail like a touchline conversion as well himself, but just especially that penalty maybe tightened up a little bit at that point. And yeah, so it's probably one of his poorer days from the tee, but overall I thought he had a decent game. On to attack then. Meters made 367 for Leinster, 366 for Northampton. So it shows how much Northampton came back in that second half, because they couldn't make a meter to save their lives in the first half. Clean breaks then 5 for Leinster, 8 for Northampton. And again, this is something that I come back to a lot, like that. Leinster conceding more clean breaks, but still not conceding more tries, and a lot of it is that scramble. We saw it, with Doris getting back on at one occasion. We saw a couple of other times in the game as well, like the Gibson Park getting back for that kick through as well. Defenders beaten then 21-23. So again, Northampton, showing that they did bring it. When they started to motor, they really did find those gaps. Passes then 229 to 128. Territory 59% to 41. Leinster completely dominant. Their possession, for whatever reason, in this one, is one of these stats is always wrong. It's 0-0. So nobody had any ball apparently. On the defence then, tackles made 117 for Leinster, 207 for Northampton. Leinster tackling at 84%, which is kind of where we expect Leinster to be. If you watch my channel, I'll talk about this a lot. Generally, you would expect a team with a decent defensive performance is around about 87%, 86, 87% is kind of passable. Northampton up at 91, that's excellent from them. But Leinster at 84, that's kind of normal for Leinster, because again, they have that scramble that kind of makes up for it, that kind of brings them up to kind of a few percentage higher, really, in terms of how the defence is actually operating. Turnovers won then 12-10. Leinster winning some vital turnovers, none more than that Doris one right at the end. On to set piece then. Before I even click this, I'm going to predict that there won't be any stats for line-out steals, because throughout the entire competition, if you go back and look at any game, look at the stats for the line-out. Apparently, there were no line-out steals in the whole competition. There were definitely line-out steals today, but let's see whether the stats think so or not. Okay, so first things first. So 11 line-outs won for Leinster, 15 for Northampton. Leinster going at 92%, which is really good for them. 88% for Northampton is respectable. Line-out steals, 0-0, of course. Someone needs to fix those stats. Scrums won then, 6 each. Leinster going at 86%. Northampton at 75%. It was very competitive in the scrum. Like, a lot of people were talking before the game how Leinster, with all their experience, etc., were going to dominate. But I've honestly rarely seen Leinster dominate in the scrum. And it was the same again today. They did well in the scrum, and they won a few penalties, but so did Northampton as well. And gonna be kind of give a little bit more respect to Northampton's front five for that performance there as well. On to kicking then, kicks from hand 37-29 to Leinster, and a good portion of those had to have been box kicks from Gibson Park from Leinster, but still made more kick meters, 1,049 to 916. 916 is a big kick meter number, and normally that would be the higher of the two teams in most games, but Leinster going more than 100 meters more than them. We always know that they have Low there as a great option, but they also now have like Frawley and Osborne as well as other kicking options to put the ball further down the field. Retain kicks then, 6 for Leinster and 3 for Northampton. But again, a lot of the retained kicks on the Leinster side were kind of slap backs and somebody else would take it up. Then we look at the breakdown. So ruck total again 0-0. Ruck success 0% each. So another stat that for whatever reason doesn't get updated properly. Turnovers 1 in ruck or mauls, 12 for Leinster, 10 for Northampton. Maul totals then 4-1 for Leinster. Leinster 75% and Northampton 100%. Wasn't really a game where we saw mauls featuring all that much in terms of having a big impact on the game. And then we just look at the discipline. Then penalties conceded 9 for Leinster, 11 for Northampton. Not really a big kind of a big sway in terms of penalties in the game. I didn't feel like the Reynal had too much of an effect on the outcome. I thought he had a really good game actually, and both teams getting fairly penalised, I felt as well, even if some players didn't feel that way for both teams. But yeah, I thought he was decent there. Leinster coming just the right side of the penalty count. But there were times when Northampton would go up the line from a penalty, and Leinster would get up there and either steal or disrupt the line out, or disrupt them when they got the ball then as well. Now, so those are our stats. Before we get on to each of the teams, just a big congratulations to Cian Healy for a record 111 games in Europe. I'm so happy for him because I honestly thought that his career was done when he got injured just before the Rugby World Cup. So it's brilliant to see him back and setting such records as well. He's been a fantastic servant for both Leinster and Ireland down through the years. In terms of the two teams then, Northampton, very nervy start, but they stuck in there and they almost won it at the death, and I think they can be very proud of their efforts in this one as well. To be able to come back at this Leinster team the way they did, and to make Leinster so nervous there at the end and almost nick it there as well. They've got to be given great credit for that, because other teams would have wilted under that pressure and found themselves especially kind of in that period. Like Leinster got that score right just after half time. Other teams would have maybe conceded another try or two before the 60-minute mark, and then once they're coming back then to try and score themselves, Leinster are up around maybe the 40-point mark rather than the 20-point mark, and then any scores you're getting really isn't making a dent on their lead. But Northampton, I thought they stepped up their defence. They start putting pressure on Leinster as well. You could see they were getting in there. They were getting turnovers when they had the ball themselves as well. They were looking to get that width where there always is space when you're attacking Leinster. I thought they did that very well, getting out into the tram lines there and using numbers out there and kicking at the right time and carrying it at the right time as well. And just unlucky for them. And for me, I know supposedly, as an Irish supporter, I'm not supposed to have any sympathy for English clubs. At least that's kind of the historic thing of it. But personally, I feel like it's great to see Northampton back at this level, like getting to a semi-final and almost getting to a final as well. Because when I was really getting into rugby, around for me, I kind of came to rugby late. I didn't grow up being a huge rugby fan. I was more of a soccer fan. But then in my kind of mid-20s or so, I started getting into it more and more. And Northampton are kind of part of that journey of rugby being this amazing, entertaining sport, and their battles down the years with both Munster and Leinster, are ingrained on my memory. Obviously, they were kind of the opposition in those ones, but still, you can't help but kind of respect them for the history that they have back there. And again, it's just good to see them back at this level. And for me as well, I want to see teams being competitive. I don't like to see, competition where it's only people are thinking, oh, well, only one of maybe 2 or 3 teams can actually win the competition. You want like any team that makes a semi-final should have a chance to lift the trophy. And I think that's what Northampton did today. They gave themselves a chance. Didn't quite get there, though. Leinster, dominant for 50 minutes, but they didn't put the points on the board. And, again, as I said, this is a Leinster team. They're not used to having to score in the final quarter. And I'm not saying that they don't score any points at all in the final quarter. I'm saying that they're very rarely in a position where, like, to win the game, they've got to be scoring points in those final 20 minutes, especially when you come to the final kind of 10 minutes of a game. So, it's whatever it is for them, it seems to be difficult for them to kind of, they seem to really blast for 50 minutes of a game. And then we have kind of 10-minute transition type period where either team can have a bit of a purple patch. And then they kind of, they kind of almost go into a coasting mode through the last 20 minutes of the game. And I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose, or obviously no players are doing that on purpose. They're still trying as hard as they can, and the bench is coming on trying to have an impact as well. But it just, to me, seems to be a pattern that's there, and those kind of patterns can, they can work for you and they can work against you. And we talked about how Leinster have those great patterns of being able to get those scores just before halftime, just after halftime. We saw again today with James Lowe's try, and what a crucial score that turned out to be in the final shake-up as well. But Leinster, they're in the final. There's plenty of them to correct ahead of that game, but for now, I think it's just kind of a celebration tinged with relief at the fact that they did, they didn't kind of blow it. They did come through in the end there, and got the win and got into the final, because how crushing would it have been if Northampton had got a late try to win that game. It would have been, honestly, the way with Leinster last 2 final defeats, and then if they had had that on top of it in Croke Park, it could have been a huge mental blow for them. Now, the thing to work on from now, though, is they've still got 3 rounds of the regular URC to go. They've got wherever many knockout games they're able to go through and that as well. And then they've got the final of this competition to go as well. So they've got to now get themselves in a position where they can get themselves kind of ticking along. And as well, I feel that these players, they need to be turning out for more games before now and the final of this competition. There can't be this whole thing again of let's wrap them in cotton wool, because you saw at the start of this game how rusty they were in the beginning. And it could have easily been, if Northampton had been the team that settled first, it could be them that's going to the final. That's how in the end, how tight this game turned out to be. So lots for Leinster to work on, but for me, I'm just so happy that they got through. I'm happy as well in turn that it was, it didn't turn into a blowout, because I didn't want that to happen to Northampton. Again, I kind of have sympathy kind of for all rugby fans, because for me, I can always put myself in somebody else's shoes in terms of what it's like to lose such a close game. But I think they can be proud of their team's efforts. And I think Leinster as well, the Leinster fans can be proud of the team making 3 finals on the trot. But there's still lots of work to do. The job isn't done quite yet. So on to the final, and let's see how they go from there.